sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K,
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marianaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TV. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome, everyone. Marinaro on this Friday, February 2nd. It is the Sick Podcast and is brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Also brought to you in part by these guys right over here. I'm talking about La Bitte TV, brewed in Quebec, a winner of a dozen international awards. La Bitte TV offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. La Bitte TV, embrace your true nature. Folks, we're going to talk about the Sean Monahan trade in just a minute, but not before I talk to you about Playground. Also, a proud sponsor and partner of the Sick Podcast with over 30,000 square feet of new gaming, dining, and entertainment space. It's time to reacquaint yourself with the new, revamped, and renovated Playground. World-class sushi, AAA steaks, live shows, a brand new poker floor, and so much more, located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. Playground, experience the strip without the trip. And that's right, because earlier today, specifically at 11:30 a.m., we were getting rumblings. Before that, of course, we were tipped off. But at 11:30 a.m., the Montreal Canadiens made it official. The Canadiens acquired a first-round pick in 2024 and a conditional third-round pick in 2027 from Winnipeg in exchange for forward Sean Monahan. That conditional pick is on the condition that the Winnipeg Jets win the Stanley Cup this year. If they don't, forget about it. It's just Monahan for a first-round pick in 2024. For some, it's mission accomplished, because when the Canadiens acquired Monahan initially from Calgary, they received a first-round pick with him, and now by trading him to Winnipeg, they get another first-round pick. Others are not going to be very satisfied, because they're going to take a look at what Elias Lindholm got the Calgary Flames a couple of nights ago, and they're going to say, hold on a second here. Canadiens could have done better than this, because Elias Lindholm got you a player who scored, a 27-year-old winger who got 39 goals a year ago, was getting a point every other game this year, got you two defense prospects of 19 and 21 years of age, a left-handed defenseman and a right-handed defenseman, got you a third-round pick, and got you a first-round pick. But as we've been telling you on the program, we had no doubt that Sean Monahan was going to fetch a first-round pick for the Montreal Canadiens, but we also told you that his injury history was really going to hurt the process. And that, I think, is what happened here. One guy who was part of Kent Hughes' Zoom call earlier today and asked about Sean Monahan's injury history and how much it impacted this trade is Stu Cowan from the Montreal Gazette and HockeyInsideOut.com. He joins me now. Stu, how are you?
I'm doing well, Tony. How are you doing?
I'm doing extremely well. I'm just going to take 1 second here to stand up so I can show everyone. Huh? Embrace the Tank is the hoodie that I'm wearing, Stu. We knew that this was coming. There were some that still held out hope that the Montreal Canadiens were going to hold on to Sean Monahan and sign him to a contract extension, yada, yada, yada. I think we had a pretty good feeling that this was going to happen. But by not receiving an NHL-ready player in return, Stu, I've said this before a million times. I'm going to say it again. Players don't tank, but general managers can do things in their power to make sure that they end up icing a weaker team. And by icing a weaker team, you're going to end up losing more than you're going to win. And the Canadiens now are going to be icing a weaker team with Sean Monahan going to Winnipeg.
Yeah, Jake Evans is your second center right now until Alex Newhook comes back. And you hit the nail on the head with the Lindholm comparison. Lindholm's got no injury history, and Sean Monahan has a lot of injury history. And I think that's another reason why Kent Hughes didn't want to wait any longer. The Lindholm trade, as he mentioned on the Zoom conference, sped things up a bit in that the teams that were also going after Lindholm after he was gone, Sean Monahan was second on their list, I guess. So now the focus shifted to him. But for Kent Hughes to wait until March 8th to see if he would get anything higher, I asked him this question on the Zoom conference, doesn't make much sense because I'm sure he's been holding his breath, hoping Sean Monahan doesn't get hurt ahead of then. So I think going into this season, he was hoping last season they wanted to get a first round pick for him at the trade deadline last year. Then he got hurt. That fell through. They were able to re-sign him for a minimal amount, $2 million, including the $15,000 bonus he got for playing 26 games this season, which is one more than last year. That speaks volumes about his injury past. And now he got the first round pick. He got it offered to him. And again, for Winnipeg, now they're taking the risk. I mean, they're going to be holding their breath that Sean Monahan doesn't get hurt. Kent Hughes said he doesn't have any reason to worry that there's an injury with him, but Monahan has had a couple of therapy days recently and not taken part in practice. There's a lot of wear and tear on that body. So I think it's a good deal for both teams. Winnipeg gives up the first round pick, which will be a late pick with the way they've been playing. Sean Monahan will be a great fit there. Sean Monahan would be a great fit on any team in the NHL. He's also a guy who loves playing in the Canadian markets. He's spoken about that. Like he wants to play somewhere where hockey matters, and hockey matters in Winnipeg. I think he'll be a great fit there. And I think for Kent Hughes, it was like, let's get the first round pick now. It's guaranteed. It's in our pocket. We got it. Look what happened last year with Joel Edmondson when he got hurt. Maybe he would have got them a first round pick if he was healthy. Instead, they ended up with a third and a seventh round pick from Washington. So for me, the first round pick was there. I'm sure Kent Hughes does his homework. He called around, he shopped around to see if other teams were offering more, and they weren't. So he's got 2 first round picks this year, and 2 more first round picks next year.
He said something very interesting, Kent did, when you asked him about, Monahan's injury history. And, throughout his Zoom call, he talked about they did their homework. The Canadians did. He and Jeff Gordon, of course, and the rest of the staff. They knew where the market was.
Yep.
And they also knew where the market was going. And what's important about that, because then he elaborated later on by saying there's a possibility that the market was going to go in the opposite direction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That what you thought teams would be paying right now, if you thought that they would end up paying more at the deadline, they have a feeling that it was going to go in the opposite direction and teams were probably going to end up paying less at the deadline. So for all, for everyone watching YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Twitter Live, and they're saying, hold on a second here. If he would have waited in the deadline, and I know you said, well, you can't risk Monahan getting injured. That's one thing. Mm-hmm. But they're probably saying, but if he would have waited, though, he could have got so much more, so it probably would have been worth the risk. He basically said, we knew where the market was going, and there were offers that probably could have been taken off the table. But, there
might be fewer teams. I mean, the standings are going to change between now and March 8th, too. There might be some teams who won't be interested in making a deal because they've fallen out by that time. So, again, going into this season, he said earlier in the Zoom conference, his goal was to get either a first-round pick or a prospect with the value of a first-round pick, a previous first-round pick. And so he got it. And going into this season, I think if when they first got Sean Monahan, if Canadians fans were told you're going to get 2 first-round picks for this guy, people would have been thrilled. And while some fans might not be happy right now, thinking they could have got more after seeing the Lindholm trade, they also could have got nothing. No, so it's a risk thing. I mean, and again with Monahan, the so much injury history, including groins and hips, and those are things that for hockey players, that's a tough injury for anybody to recover from.
Yeah,
he's played every game this season. He's been healthy. He's been very effective, and I hope for Sean Monahan, because he's a class act. I hope he goes to Winnipeg. I hope he plays great there. I hope Winnipeg goes far in the playoffs. It'd be great to see a Canadian team win the Stanley Cup. It'd be great to see Winnipeg win the Stanley Cup. But, there's a possibility that he gets hurt with Winnipeg, and then Winnipeg fans are going crazy that they gave up a first-round pick for this guy. But as Hughes said also, there's a risk with any player, right? Any player can get hurt. But there's a higher risk that Sean Monahan is going to get hurt than a Lindholm is going to get hurt.
You know what I love about Kent Hughes, Stu, is that I have the feeling that he's a step ahead. He already knows where he's going with these picks that are coming, right? So look, that could very well be the case.
Yeah.
And there's something that a lot of other people have to that people have to keep in mind as well, is that if we take a look at Nick Bobrov's, one of the directors of amateur scouting for the Montreal Canadiens, if we take a look at his track record when he was with the Rangers, of course, there's players that were drafted that turned out to be really, really good players. I think of Keandre Miller, who was a first-round pick and a 22nd overall. But Lias Andersson was a 7th pick overall in 2017. Vitaly Kravtsov was a 9th pick overall in 2018. And Capo Caco, and no one's giving up on him, but if you would do that draft over again right now, that 2019 draft, Hughes is number 1, but not sure that Capo Caco is taken ahead of Moritz Seider. He's not, actually. He's not going to be taken ahead of probably Trevor Zegras. Not going to be taken ahead of probably Matthew Boldy. Probably not going to be taken ahead of Cole Caulfield. So, everyone says they're stockpiling picks. No, but it doesn't mean they're going to bat for 1,000 when they pick them. So if they strike out half the time, the more picks you have, the more times you're actually going to succeed too, right?
And the more picks you have, the more chance you have to trade some of them too. I mean, the Canadiens are not going to have a high first-round pick this year, and it'll be higher now with Monahan gone than with him here. And a lower first-round pick, and I wouldn't be surprised if the pick they get from Winnipeg, they end up packaging it with something else and making a trade to find another one of those 21, 22-year-old prospects, another Kirby Dach, another Alex Newhook, another guy like that, and use that. So let's say they got 12 picks now this year and 11 picks next year. Kent Hughes has a lot of cards that he can play moving forward. And I mean, Sean Monahan is an unrestricted free agent in the summer. I think it's unlikely he would re-sign to come back here, but depending what happens, if the Canadiens really want to bring him back, that possibility is there. I don't see it happening, but it's a possibility.
We have some clips from Kent Hughes' Zoom call, which took place earlier today at 1 p.m. Eastern. Let's play one at a time. So we'll play one, we'll tackle it, and then we'll go on to the next one. Let's go.
Je suis convaincu qu'il y a plusieurs équipes qui t'ont téléphoné. En tout cas, je pense pas me tromper en disant ça. Est-ce qu'il y en a qui t'ont fait des offres qui étaient prêts à te donner un joueur ou
de nous donner un joueur au lieu d'un choix?
Oui.
Non. On a demandé des joueurs, des prospects dans certains cas, mais les prospects qu'on a demandé, les équipes n'ont pas voulu partir avec.
Merci, Marc. Et on termine avec François Gagnon pour...
There we go. There's Marc Defoy, who says, can you tell us if teams offered you a player/prospect for Sean Monahan? There's a pause, and Kent Hughes says, no. And then he says, look, the prospects that we asked for from teams, nobody wanted to give us any of the prospects that we asked for. So once again, that injury history that we've been talking about, it played a huge role, Stu. And I know, by the way, I don't know how it took like 15 questions into the Zoom call for someone to actually ask him about Sean Monahan's injury history. Like, some of the questions that were asked, holy mother of Jesus. But anyway.
Well, the thing is, those prospects that he was asking about, Tony, he obviously has a board somewhere with the prospects they're interested in. It doesn't mean he can't get those guys now in the summer, maybe with one of his first-round picks and one of their young defensemen and whatever. So maybe one of those prospects that he couldn't get from Sean Monahan, he will be able to get this summer, maybe using their draft pick that he got from Monahan plus something else to get one of those prospects. So to me, you can't talk about Sean Monahan without talking about his injuries. And I hate to say that because he hates talking about it, and it's understandable why. And he's one of the NHL players I have the most respect for, and so his teammates love him. But there's a lot of damage on that body. And as I said, hips and groins and ankles. And he's 29 years old. And there's no doubt I'm sure that Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton were watching games, and every time he got hit, or like when the training staff's out, he's taking a therapy today, he's not going to be practicing. They were like, "Whoa, man!" Because they went through this last year with him and Edmondson. So the first round pick was there. That you got it. It's in your pocket. Deal done. None of the prospects that we want we can get.
Yeah.
We're going to take the first round pick. We're going to take a deep breath and exhale. We're going to follow your sweatshirt there a little bit. And
embrace the tank
and move forward. And as you said at the end of the Zoom conference too, somebody asked me, who do you need to step up to replace Monahan? And he said, well, the whole team. And this is a case of now Monahan's not there, and he's a big guy in that locker room. He's a real leader that guys look up to. He's gone now, so now it's more and more on the young guys. Now it's your team. Now it's more and more moving forward.
Very, very noble answer on his part and diplomatic. Who are you kidding? He's tanking, right? He's not going to tell you he's tanking. That's exactly what he's doing. He wants to make sure.
Yeah. I mean, they made it clear right from the golf tournament, Tony, when Jeff Gorton didn't want to use the P word. I mean, the Canadians were not looking to make the playoffs this season. Like that's in their game plan. It wasn't like, let's make the playoffs this season. And Jeff Gorton made that very clear at the golf tournament. It's all about development and moving forward and building this young team. And we've seen that in their record. What it is, considering all the players they've lost, is impressive. They're right around 500, whatever you want to take what 500 is in the NHL today with the loser points. But they've competed hard, and now it's going to get, as you said, players don't tank, but it's going to be hard now without Monahan, and it's going to be even harder to the trade deadline. If they get rid of David Savard and whoever else they might get rid of, it's going to be the last month of the season. It's going to be hard for this team to win games, but that's going to improve their draft stock moving forward, and it's going to let young guys get more ice time, play more significant roles, have more pressure on them as far as being a guy like Jake Evans now. He's going to be your second line center for a while. This is a chance for him to
until Nua comes back.
Until Nua comes back. Yeah, but he's going to get additional ice time. And so it's time for other guys to step up both on and off the ice. And Monahan's a big loss for this team. Like he really both. Yeah. And Ken Hughes said that, like what he meant to the on the ice, off the ice, in the city of Montreal, as I mentioned, it's a really fact. He does everything right. He's a true pro. He's a pro's pro. And the players recognize that. The Canadiens are lucky to have another guy like that still in the locker room, like Matheson. It's similar type of character, similar type of players, similar type of commitment on the ice, off the ice. So they're not void of that guy, but Sean Monahan's a big loss in the locker room, and as Ken Hughes said that.
You're right about that, and some people watching right now are probably saying, well, then why didn't they just keep him? Because he made it clear. He said they couldn't give Sean Monahan the contract that he wanted at this time. Yeah. And, Pierre Maguire joined me, I think it was over a week ago, and I asked him about Monahan, and he said, Tony, I went to a college game, and Rick Dudley was there. And Rick Dudley is, well known in hockey circles, of course, for having a real good eye and watching thousands and thousands and thousands of hockey games in his life. And he goes, Dudley and I were, we basically bumped into each other, and we both had the same comment at the same time. This game was so fast. And he said, Tony, if you wouldn't know, you would think that college game was probably like an NHL game. And so to say what? To say that the game has got so much faster, right? And so much younger that everything everyone may have said about 34-year-olds in the past doesn't necessarily hold water today. So if you say, yeah, but Sean Monahan in 5 years will be 34 if you give him a 5-year deal and he could still play. You don't know that. The league is younger. The league is faster. The injuries are significant, so much so that no team was offering up a roster player. No team was offering up a prospect. And the first-round pick the Canadians got is going to be a very late first-rounder. So
look how quickly Alex Ovechkin's fallen off this year, Tony.
Yeah. Ken Hughes did not say no to a better deal. I mean,
no, of course not. And as you're right, I mean, the game is so fast now. I mean, you mentioned Mike Matheson before. He's a guy I would bank on him at 33, 34 more than Sean Monahan just because he doesn't have the history pass and the way he skates and the physical condition he's in and everything like that. But I mean, you look at Brendan Gallagher, and it's Canadians got in trouble by Mark Bergevin giving contracts for what guys did in the past as opposed to what they might do in the future. And like, would you be ready to give Sean Monahan a 3-year contract at $5-6 million a year? I wouldn't.
No, I would not.
I mean, I wouldn't. I'd be going like 1 year at a time with him because of that injury history, and I wouldn't be ready to give him that contract. And Ken Hughes was very honest with that. He said I wasn't able to give him. I can't remember the exact quote he had, but the value of a contract that he thinks he's worth at this point, we weren't ready to give that to him.
Yeah.
I think that's a smart decision on Kent Hughes' part.
Stu, when Lindholm was traded a couple of nights ago, somebody sent me a tweet, and I still call them tweets, even though it's no longer called Twitter, and I still call it Twitter, by the way. But somebody sent me a tweet saying, Tony, when would you trade Sean Monahan? And I wrote, in 10, 9, 8, 7. And the reason why I say that is, look, Kent Hughes knows the market a lot better than any of us, obviously. But I would have thought from the outside, which is here in my basement in Villa Sal, all right? And not, at the arena where he is. I would have thought that if you hold on up until trade deadline or 24 or 48 hours before, you're going to get more. But if I was him, like you said, I'm trading him too, because I'm freaking out every time he blocks a shot, every time he gets hit. Stu, and the ice time he's going to get. For everybody watching, Stu, for everyone, pardon me, for everyone watching who's saying, you should have held on. If they were Kent Hughes, okay, there's no way they would risk holding on to Sean Monahan and risk, because if Kent Hughes doesn't trade Monahan today and he gets hurt in a couple of days next week, Kent Hughes is getting obliterated. Radio, television, podcast, everywhere.
A lot of those same fans, Tony, if his hip or his groin goes out again next week or the week after and he's done for the season and you get nothing in exchange for him, which is what happened last year. And Kent Hughes also has to be applauded. He didn't get anything for Sean Monahan last year because of the injury, but the Canadians and Kent Hughes and Marty St. Louis made such an impression on Sean Monahan and the rebuild and this locker room that he wanted to come back. He wanted to come back. He chose to come back here. He re-signed to come back here for a $2 million contract. So that speaks volumes that the guy wanted to come back and play here again for what they're creating here in this environment. And then so they signed $2 million, and now they got the first round pick that they were hoping to get last year. So it's just basically it's a delayed process. Last year, if they got a first round pick for Sean Monahan, everybody would have been great. They almost got nothing for Sean Monahan, right? From the first round pick they already got from Calgary, but they brought him back, and now they've held on and they've traded him, and now they've got 2 first round picks.
Yeah, you're right. They could have let him walk, but they brought him back for $2 million. Ended up paying about $1.5 million. He's got about probably $500,000 left or whatever it is, and they end up getting a first round pick in return. All right, okay. Another clip from the presser.
Excuse-moi, Charles, j'avais de la difficulté à unmuter. Ken, je sais que il y a une raison pourquoi tu as ramené Sean Monahan dans ton équipe cette saison aussi. Probablement que tu crois beaucoup à ce joueur-là. Est-ce que tu peux partager en partie ou au complet, pas au complet, pas chaque mot, mais la conversation que tu as eue avec lui pour lui annoncer cette transaction aujourd'hui?
Oui, quand on a signé Sean, on l'a signé parce qu'on croyait que c'est un joueur qui nous rend une meilleure équipe sur la glace, dans la vestiaire, puis dans la ville de Montréal. Sean est, je peux pas dire assez de bons mots à propos de Sean. Il est vraiment, vraiment une personne puis un joueur très, très important à nous. Quand je l'ai appelé, ça qu'il y avait des choses qui ont sorti ou qui sont sorties dans le média un peu, puis on a beaucoup de fierté d'essayer d'annoncer les échanges sans que ça arrive à nos joueurs. Alors, je lui ai parlé pour lui dire, écoute, que les rumeurs étaient vraies, qu'on sait qu'on était meilleure équipe avec Sean, mais qu'on n'est pas en position dans le moment de lui offrir. On n'a pas assez de clarté, Renaud, dans notre avenir pour lui offrir un contrat raisonnable. Alors, on a dit, dans le cas qu'on est, on est mieux de l'échanger, puis qu'on a croyé qu'on lui donner la chance de jouer pour une très bonne équipe où il va se situer bien dans leur alignement. Puis je les remercie pour...
All right. Question was, talk to us about the conversation that you had with Sean Monahan leading up to this trade. And he said, look, we take a lot of pride in trying to make our players aware of everything that's going on. The second the news came out that, Montreal and Winnipeg was working on a trade, I called Sean Monahan to tell him right away that what he was hearing was indeed fact. It was true. We weren't able to give him what he wanted. And this is an interesting comment, Stu. We didn't have enough. We weren't able to give him what he wanted right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have enough clarity as to what our future looks like to bring him back. What does that mean?
Well, I think it means he doesn't know what he's going to do yet this summer, right? He doesn't know what's going to happen at the draft. He doesn't know what trades he might do. He doesn't know what players he might bring in. He's going to have some salary cap room to work with. He doesn't know who might be available. Maybe there's a younger version of Sean Monahan he can get this summer. How much is that guy going to cost? So I think that's all. They're just not in a position now, as I mentioned earlier. Would you give Sean Monahan 3 years at $5 or $6 million? No, I wouldn't. This summer, the Canadians are where they are, and maybe they figure out. As again, I don't see Monahan coming back here, but they might be in a position to make him an offer if they did want him back. But it's just they're not certain yet. A lot can happen between the trade deadline now, free agency this summer, the draft. I mean, they could be a much different looking team going into next season, and they might not have the money if they did sign. You know what I mean? They might look at it. They could spend that. Yeah. They could spend that money more wisely than giving it to Sean Monahan at this point. And also, kudos to Kent Hughes, because those rumors are coming out today. We saw the tweets that there was a trade going on, and he reached out to Monahan to let him know, yeah, this is happening. This is true. And he's shown that. And not only him, but Gorton and Hughes and St. Louis have shown since they've taken over is how they treat players properly and with respect. And you go back to Marc Bergevin's famous line, if you want loyalty, get a dog. Well, Kent Hughes has been loyal to Sean Monahan. You look at the way he handled the Jeff Petrie situation when Petrie didn't want to be here anymore. His wife wanted out. He said, look, we're going to try and trade you. I'm going to try and make a good deal. But if I can't make a good deal, you have a contract, you have to stay. He makes the incredible trade that he made for Mike Matheson. And then when he brought Petrie back this summer, first thing he did is call him and say, don't worry, I'm trading you again. You're not coming back here. I'm not going to hold out for the best deal. As soon as I get something, I'm going to trade you. And he did it. And that goes a long way. Like we were talking about Sean Monahan wanting to re-sign here. It goes a long way around the NHL. These guys are friends. They're friends on different teams. They talk to each other. And the word around the league now is that you get treated well in Montreal. And guys around the league, Sean Monahan is one of the most respected players in the league. And they traded him to a team, and Hughes said this in his conference call, a team where he's going to fit in well. Like Winnipeg can use him well, and he's going to be Canadian market again, which he likes. He's going to be somewhere where hockey matters. So he handled them properly. He handled them. It wasn't. He doesn't look at these guys just as a piece of meat. And but at the same time, the moves he's making are to make the team a better team. And he did that when he traded Jeff Petrie. I think he's going to do the same thing now with Sean Monahan. We'll see what happens with this pick. Again, they might trade that first-round pick they got from Winnipeg. We'll see what happens moving forward to get another Alex Newhook type, another Kirby Dach type player. But the Canadians are run now like a professional, organized, the way the Montreal Canadiens should be run, right? The Canadians are here, right, in the league. They still, the New York Yankees, they run this management team runs the Canadians, in my opinion, the way this franchise should operate. You take a look at even on the social media, the goodbye to Sean Monahan. It's classy. I don't have enough good words to say about Sean Monahan. And neither do I, from my dealings with him. I don't have enough good words to say about Sean Monahan either, and neither do his teammates. I mean, Juraj Slafkovsky would miss Sean Monahan a ton. I mean, they talk together every day. They sit near each other in the locker room. I think Slafkovsky was a better fit playing on a line with Monahan than he was with Suzuki and Caulfield when they dropped. I think Monahan has that ability to slow the game down a bit, which is what Slafkovsky needs at times. He's really going to miss him on the ice and off the ice. But again, this is all about moving forward, and that's another guy. So, as Ken Hughes said, the younger guys, now there's more on them. Well, there's more on Juraj Slafkovsky now also, right? He doesn't have Sean Monahan to lean on.
You're right. By the way, Kent Hughes was asked about the fact that he's not retaining any salary, if that was a difference maker in this deal, and he said, "Well, I always leave the door open. I'm always willing to listen. So if I call a team or a team calls me and they say, well, we want Monahan, and I'll say, well, do I have to retain any salary? If they say yes, I'm not going to close the door. They're just going to have to give me more for him. But and the reason why this whole retaining salary comes up is because there's a quota of 3 players.
One more spot. They only got one more spot.
Correct, per year. So this year they're retaining Edmondson and Petrie. So there's only one more spot. Yeah. Next year they're retaining Petrie again.
Yeah.
So at that point,
this year, if they're looking to trade Jake Allen at the deadline, they're probably going to retain Allen on that. So that's the spot, right? If you're going to
Tanner Pearson.
So whoever they're going to move a veteran or a David Savard, they're going to move somebody, at least one guy at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
So he has that one spot. And it would have been crazy to eat money on Monahan. He's making $2 million, right? I think it's $700,000.
Yeah, and he said, correct. And he said, I just felt that if there was going to be salary to be retained, there was going to be better off the possibility of another player over Monahan. Let's play another clip.
Ken, as you were saying, you're hoping to get a first-round pick or a equivalent type prospect. I'm just wondering did Sean's history injury play any role in maybe you making the deal now as opposed to maybe waiting until the deadline where maybe it was a better offer, maybe it was a prospect or a possibility of a higher first-round pick?
Well, it's, as Simon just said, there's 32 games left, Stu, so it's kind of hard to know where anyone's pick's going to situate, but typically speaking, the teams that are going to be willing to give up a first-round pick are going to feel like they're pretty comfortably set in the playoffs. So I don't know how we would be able to evaluate a higher pick. As far as Sean's situation specifically, it's not Sean versus any other player. I think back to one of the first media availabilities I did when I took the job in advance of the first trade deadline. And there were a lot of questions about waiting and, the risk and of any player being injured, right? Joel Edmondson was injured through most of the trade deadline last year. So I think anytime you go through this process, you try to understand the market, you try to understand who is or may be interested in the services of in this case, Sean Monahan, what the upside would be, and you measure that against the risk of any player, not specifically Sean Monahan, because I don't have any specific concern in relation to Sean. If we did, we wouldn't have signed him. We were very comfortable that it was a worthwhile risk to sign him, but there is a risk to any hockey player. And there's a risk to the market shifting too, right? You see that where who's sellers, who's buyers, and how many other players end up on the market. I don't think an Ekholm or a Orlov, for example, were necessarily on the market in early February or late January of last year. So we felt comfortable that this was the right deal and that there wasn't significant upside to waiting.
Another clip, if we can. I think there's a follow-up.
It's not Sean versus any other player. I think back to one of the first media availabilities I did when I took the job in advance of the first trade deadline. And there were a lot of questions about waiting and, the risk and of any player being injured, right? Joel Edmondson was injured through most of the trade deadline last year. So I think anytime you go through this process, you try to understand the market, you try to understand who is or may be interested in the services of in this case, Sean Monahan, what the upside would be, and you measure that against the risk of any player, not specifically Sean Monahan, because I don't have any specific concern in relation to Sean. If we did, we wouldn't have signed him. We were very comfortable that
all right, if we can,
was a worthwhile risk to sign him, but there is a risk.
I think we're playing the same clip there, but anyway, that's okay. You asked him about the injuries, and he said, if his injury situation would have really concerned us, I wouldn't have signed them to begin with. Yeah. I knew that it was a risk that was worth taking, but any player can get injured. And there's also the case of the whole market shifting. And there's some players that you wouldn't think would be traded on trade deadline day, and they end up getting traded. And then all of a sudden, the attention could shift somewhere else. So once again, I think it comes down to what you said, Stu. He would have been happy with a first-round pick at the very least. He got it. It was there on the table. He didn't want to take any chances. He took it.
No, and it wasn't going to accept anything less than like first round pick was the minimum he was going to get, and he got. I mean, and there's also a reason why he got Sean Monahan for $2 million this year instead of $6.5 million that his previous contract was, because of the injuries, right? Because of the uncertainty surrounding him. That's why and Monahan wanted it was $1,950,000 whatever, and he had a $15,000 bonus put in for playing 26 games, one more than last season, just as a sort of. It's only $15,000, but it's just like a landmark. Like, I've played more games than last year, and he said he's played for all 49 games this year. He hasn't been hurt, as I've mentioned. He's missed a couple of practices recently for therapy days, but that's most players do, or a lot of players do during the course of the season, just if a little nagging injury or took a shot off the leg or something, or just even feeling a little tired. But again, they got the first round pick. I think that was the minimum he wanted. If you could have got more, great. But I guess when he weighed the pros and cons, Kent Hughes realized the possibility of getting more than a first-round pick aren't very high. And right now I've got the first-round pick in my hand. It's mine. Just sign the deal. It's done. And he said, let's do it.
I know you've been talking about David Savard for quite some time, whose contract is up at the end of next season. There's no doubt in my mind, with all due respect to David, that next year by trade deadline day, the Montreal Canadiens will trade David Savard, and he won't be part of the future. There's that possibility, of course, that they even trade him this year with 1 year left on his contract, because teams can see value in that as well. He was asked if he had a conversation with David Savard to assure David whether he was not going to be traded or to tell him that he was going to be traded. He said, I haven't had a talk with David Savard yet. What I will tell you is I'm willing to trade anybody that will make our team better.
Yeah, and he said he's not. He said, if I remember right, he's not shopping him. He hasn't been shopping him, but he's listening for calls. You're right. I mean, and I understand David Savard. And he also said, if David Savard wants to talk, my door's always open. He said, I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet. He's been busy with other things.
Yeah.
If Savard wants to walk into his office when they get back from the bye week next week and talk to him, Kent will be there. And Kent's very honest with players. And David Savard has reason to be concerned. He's got, I think, 3 young kids. I'm sure they're in schools. He's got his wife here. He's back home. There's a lot involved, right? Where might I be going? Are you going to send me? Or you're not going to send me? But I think they will trade him this year if they can get, because I think they need to open up.
You think so, eh?
I just think they need to open up some spots for some of the younger guys coming up. And would they miss David Savard? Definitely, just like they're going to miss Sean Monahan. But, I know, Tony, you've been one of the leaders of the full rebuild, wanting this team to do a full rebuild. And full rebuilds are painful. And I think Canadiens fans, some of them are starting to lose patience already. They think like year 2, this team, what are you doing? It's a long process. And it's all about making this team better moving forward. And like David Savard's not part of this team when they're at a point in the rebuild where they're ready to compete, 2-3 years down the road. So again, with Kent Hughes, depending on the offers he gets leading up to the trade deadline, if it's not the trade deadline, maybe it's in the summer. If it's not in the summer, definitely by the next year's trade deadline, David Savard will be dealt. But I think it makes more sense to trade him earlier rather than later to bump up this rebuild process, because when he's gone, that means one of the younger guys is getting time and that experience.
So you're right. Some people are already losing patience with the rebuild. And Stu, you know what I say to them? When you rebuild, you hit rock bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you do the rebuild the right way, you get a little bit better the next year.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get a little bit better the year after that. Then you get a little bit better. And then eventually you get to the point where you're going to become a playoff team. And then once you become a playoff team, you're still going to get better. And then you'll stay a very, very competitive team for 4, 5, 6 years down the line, to the point where at one point you'll compete for a Stanley Cup. That's if the rebuild is done the right way. Don't give me examples of the rebuild done the wrong way. That's not the goal here. The goal is to do the rebuild the right way. But you know what's more painful than a full rebuild, Stu? You know what's more painful? Patching for 30 years and being a roller coaster, going up and down and up and down and up and down. You don't know what to expect. And your only chance is a goalie standing on his head so everyone can go around town yelling, or going on a one-day shopping spree, or compromising the future for a centerman who can't deliver anymore.
Or making trades just for the sake of making trades. Remember the year the Canadiens had a great team? Was it about 8 years ago when they lost to the Rangers in the first round? That was the year, they went out and got Dwight King, and they got Ott at the trade deadline when they already had a team that was near the top of the league in the standings, and it threw off the chemistry in the team. It disrupted the locker room.
Made them slower, actually. Made them slower.
Made their fourth line. I mean, they put they put Dwight King on the ice instead of, Torrey Mitchell sat in the press box. One guy's like an anchor on the line, and the other guy can fly. And that fourth line had been effective that year. Was Torrey with Byron and the other guy they had from Buffalo. Anyway, the fourth line was three speedy guys. And then
was it Sven Andrighetto?
No, it was
Andreas Martinson.
No, it was the guy they had from Buffalo. Oh man, I'll find it here because it's going to drive me crazy. But they went from having a really fast fourth line, an effective fourth line, to a fourth line that sort of weighed them down, and it just didn't make sense. And it was a case of making trades for the sake of making trades.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who it was now.
Brian,
this is going to drive me crazy. There we go.
Yeah,
there we go. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. They had those couple of players were pretty good on the penalty kill too that year.
Yeah, but they had speed. I mean, and that team. I mean, they finished second or third in the league that year, and then they made themselves slower at the trade deadline. And again, you have guys that have been with the team all year. Now they're sitting in the press box. They're scratched. They have other guys bringing in. It was a bad decision. Like, they didn't have to really do anything that year. They had a really good team. But you say, now the thing is, as I've said this before in the podcast, you can disagree with the moves that Kent Hughes makes, but you can also understand his thinking and why he made them.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Because he's not just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks and trying to plug holes. Every move he makes, you might not agree with it, but when he explains it, you go, okay, I understand why.
Stu, he's following through on his plan.
Mm-hmm.
And 10 years from now, we'll look back and we'll decide whether or not the plan worked or it didn't.
Yeah.
But he won't sway from it.
No, and you know what?
Yeah,
what it is, Tony? The difference, I mean, Marc Bergevin was a panic GM. He jammed like he played. Like, if you're Andrei Markov, you slash me, I cross-check you in the face in contract negotiations. That's the way he jammed. And he was too emotional and too insecure in many ways, worrying he was going to lose his job. Kent Hughes, when they first called him about this job, he didn't even want it, right? First time Jeff Gorton called him, he was, I'm not interested. Yeah. And then his wife spoke to him and said, "You're sure you're not interested? This is Montreal Canadiens, your hometown, your team." And okay, maybe. I mean, really successful agent, made a ton of money, has more money, like set financially for life. When he took this job, there's pressure that comes with it, but it's not like life and death pressure to him. Like, he has a plan. He's going to do it. He's confident in it. He's going to make his decisions. He thinks it's going to work. He believes it's going to work. And if it doesn't work, he gets fired and he goes back to either being a player agent, or he retires and he goes back to his beautiful home that he was in today for the Zoom conference in Massachusetts. And life goes on. It's the same with Marty St. Louis. These guys are very successful men. They don't need these jobs, right? They don't need these jobs. And Marty was asked, I think in Philadelphia, somebody asked him that him and Patrick Roy are the only two Hall of Fame players who are now coaches. And the guy asked him, well, what do you think that is? And Marty said, well, it's the commitment to this job. Like, it's a 24/7 job. You're missing time with your family. There's a lot, there's a lot that you give up to do this job. And a lot of guys don't want to give it up. And they have guys here who are willing to give it up because Kent Hughes has a passion for hockey. Marty St. Louis has a passion. Yeah. When I asked him, when I had one-on-one with Kent after the job, why did you take this? Like, and even his father told him not to take the job. And he said, it's a challenge. So this is a challenge for him, and he's all in on it. Yeah. And he has his plan, and he's going to stick with it. And him and Gorton are on the same page, and Marty, they have this plan, and they're going to follow it through. And if it works, fantastic. And if it doesn't work, well, they'll bring in somebody else to do it. But again, all the moves that they make, even if you disagree with them, they make sense. They explain them in a way that you can go, okay, I understand why you did it. It's not like you're an idiot when you do that.
And by the way, folks, in case you missed it, the Los Angeles Kings earlier today fired their head coach, Todd McClellan. Jim Hiller has been named interim coach. The Los Angeles Kings had one of the 4 or 5 worst records in the National Hockey League in the last 21 or 22 games. So there you go.
Well, I think as Art Bassi tweeted, I think Marty St. Louis is now the 9th longest tenured coach in the
NHL. Longest tenure, and it's not even 2 years that he's in. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Stu, thanks so much for doing this. We'll talk to you soon, my man.
Okay, Tony, take care, buddy.
All right. Thanks all of you for watching, my sick army, my sick community, and thank you to Energy Transportation Group, Playground, and of course, La Bit TV. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube, follow us on every social media platform that you can. Tell your friends about it. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love. For Agnello, Sammy, and Juliana at Master Control, they're Cavallaro. I'm Marinaro. Embrace the tank.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marianaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVie.tv, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.